attacked on a Brooklyn street, and police say the suspects set her shirt on fire.
Prior to our intervention, she didn't want to come forward. She was kind of hesitant to cooperate with investigators. She had initially told the investigator she wasn't too sure about the identity or the description of the perpetrator.
Having someone that speaks the language and is of your background makes it a little bit easier for them to feel comfortable with going through the facts. I just tried my best and did everything I could to make her feel comfortable using, our native tongue, Cantonese, and helping her with the process.
When we got a chance to speak with her, she was very detailed in description and she was able to identify who was the one that assaulted her. That was a good break in the case, and that eventually led to an arrest.
Hi， 你好，我係黃警探。你有咩問題都可以同我溝通，我識講廣東話。My name is Jackie Wong, I'm a police officer. Joining the Asian Task Force is very personal to me. Being Asian American, growing up as kids, I think this is maybe just a kids thing, but elementary school, junior high school, there's always been, name calling and, Asian jokes and stuff like that. I don't want anyone to go through that.
I'm not home. The Asian Hate Crime Task Force came about originally towards the end of March. We started noticing an uptick in Asian-related hate crimes, especially with the COVID pandemic.
Asian Americans being attacked, being verbally abused, all for the simple fact of being Asian American.
Early on into the COVID crisis, we took 8 anti-Asian COVID-related cases. 6 of them were quick arrests and done well and prosecuted well. The other 2 would not speak with us. The victims were reluctant to come forward. That's where we saw the problem. Victims weren't answering the door for us. They weren't answering the phone. They weren't answering emails and Twitter accounts.
They're afraid of getting involved with any type of law enforcement. Maybe their past experience or either the language barrier that's there.
The task force is comprised of 25 Asian American officers and detectives, all assigned to the Detective Bureau. They're all first-generation immigrants. They all speak a second language, different dialects of Chinese, Korean, Tagalog.
We're just here to provide the Asian community, especially the victims of Asian American descent, with any help that they need, especially in the area of reluctance to come forward.
Because the language skill, you pretty much could be better explaining the laws or either that or legal procedure that they're going to face because of these cases.
It's been a success to have somebody with a familiar dialect, familiar voice, familiar face show up at the door to let the victims know and the witnesses know that they're with the police and they're with us.
I immigrated to the United States in 1983. I came here with my family, my mother and my father. We moved to here in Manhattan. And my father delivered Chinese food in the 80s in Manhattan North. When my father delivered Chinese food, sometimes I go with them because after school there was nothing for a kid like me to do back then. So he would take me on his basket in front and we would ride around Manhattan together. The 80s in New York City and delivering Chinese food, you're often a victim of robbery. Being that my family members were personal victims, that's something that really touched my heart, and that's why I take it personally.
My parents used to own a restaurant. I helped do delivery. I was making delivery, and they robbed me of my bicycle when I was around probably 17 years old.
So when we look at all hate crimes, there's anti-Asian, anti-national origin, where they go back to your country kind of statements and all these horrendous statements. When we look at the COVID-related ones, it's those statements plus something about the virus.
We shouldn't be targeted because of people's race or color or language or whatever background they are from.
Traditionally, depending on which country you come from, I think there's a mistrust of the police in their home countries. There's also sometimes a sense of, well, the police aren't going to do anything. But that couldn't be further from the truth. We do want to look into every single case. So we do want people to come forward.
There were many times my family were victims of crimes, and growing up, that made me want to become a police officer. I wanted to be in a position where I can protect my family and myself.
I remember my mom always we don't live with her. She would always call us like, hey, are you home yet?
My mom still tells me, oh, be careful. Every day, hey, be careful. Make sure you get home safe, So it's like a motherly thing. It's an Asian thing. I don't know.
Growing up Chinese American, they want you to be a doctor or a lawyer or accountant or something like that. And I told my mom that I was going to be a police officer. She was a bit disappointed. My father, not so much. He was proud. But now that 20 years gone by, he can't be any prouder.